Hey, I'm Suzanne Tidkemeyer. I used to write for Pathos, a column called No Longer Quivering, in which I examined quiverful lifestyle and theology for nearly 10 years. Unfortunately, the Duggar is a little bit in my wheelhouse. And I, this morning, started seeing rumors, dumb rumors that I have to talk about. I pray this is not true because myself, like everybody else, wants, like most other people, want to see Mr. Josh face um, his critics, and not just his critics, but receive the punishment that he deserves for his current legal woes. I don't even want to talk about it except to say it's CSA, as you well know. So we're not even going to go into that, CP. And I'm not talking about anything to do with this case today. This morning I saw a denial by Duggar saying that no way, Josh did not die. I was like, Josh Duggar dead? Oh my. So I started doing a little Googling, and a lot of the sites are reporting that Josh died. A lot of the gossip sites, some of the more spurious ones that don't always double check on what they're saying. So I remember one of the Duggar's daughters is the one that went ahead and said, I'm not the daughters, I'm sorry, the daughter-in-laws has said this has not happened. Who knows if it's happened? I'm thinking this is likely not true. Time will tell. But here's where it gets interesting. This is something that Jim Bob himself has griped about recently, and those unnamed Duggar insiders have been flapping their gums that this is what he's worried about. He's worried about something to happen to Josh while Josh is out on bail, living at the house of the people. Jim Bob twisted their arm into taking him in. This has been Jim Bob's big fear all along, is that something would happen like that. And with some of the things that have been said in some of the crazier tabloidy kind of sites and on the YouTubes, it wouldn't be too far from it. I'm actually surprised a certain person Josh hasn't covered this yet and said, oh, this is not true, or this might be true. Instead of doing like I said, it's unlikely, but who knows? Hey, really, hey, real entertainment news. I am still trying to wake up here this morning. I need caffeine, and I'm stuck with this janky, bougie LaCroix, I guess it is. Hey, Bliss, Chris. So anyway, who knows if Josh is dead or alive? I'm going to sit back and just watch. Hey, small town Jewel. I'm going to sit back and watch and see what everybody says. Right now, it is merely a rumor at some of the jankier. Hey, Aaron, some of the jankier sites. It's just a rumor. None of the big sites have confirmed it yet. No information, just says he's dead, blah, blah, blah. He's dead. Stand by for obituary. But here's where it gets, to me, very curious. One of the, which one of the tabloids, I can't remember which one, the Hollywood Gossip. I had to look and see which one it was. The Hollywood Gossip is saying that Amy Duggar is the unnamed Duggar insider that we keep hearing about, and that she's going to be the one to do a tell-all on the Duggars, the first tell-all Duggar book. I'm not going to believe any tell-all Duggar book unless it comes from a Duggar, somebody actually inside the family. Amy has always kind of been family adjacent off to the side and gets a lot of her information from Jill and some of the others that are starting to kind of ease away from the family. Always grateful. Nice to see you. Same with Busy Bee. Hey, girl. And Aaron, I don't remember if I'm not awake. I'm not awake. I was up last night tiling my kitchen backsplash, and I only got about a third done. So by the time I was done with that, it was like bedtime. So I missed everything last night. I missed all the insanity in the a certain person's little group of friends. So anyway, they're talking about that Amy's going to be the first one to do the tell-all, which is kind of funny because Derek has been making noise about that for years. Derek Dillard is married to Jill Duggar Dillard. I've been kind of hoping he would come out with a book because he has definitely been screwed over apparently by the non-disclosure agreement and everything else, and the contracts have given them no money. Bliss, exactly, exactly. I would still like to read it. Yeah, same here, except that I don't think it's going to be very accurate. And she has a big axe to grind. Jim Bob has shut down several of her interviews with people because of the NDA and had them closed, had one taken down. He has really rendered her almost completely mute. That's another reason why I think she might be one of the unnamed Duggar insiders. And I'm sure she's not the only one because when I used to write for NLQ, I would routinely get unnamed Duggar insiders giving me information. And like anything, if I can't confirm it, I'm not going to use it. I have to, yeah, Aaron, I'm kind of wondering where that came from too. I'm trying to trace the origin of this thing. Well, this is something that somebody came up with on one of the pages. It comes up with this stuff and it's not always accurate, like the one with the lady who uses the pickle as her thing. I always call her the sour, moldy cucumber because she's not always very accurate. And sometimes she's rather Duggar rear end lavaging. She's really polishing them up sometimes. I think she does too. I think Amy really wants to feel relevant. I don't think that she knows who she is or what she has or where she's at. So she's trying to find relevance. I can see that in all the different directions she goes. She tried to be a country singer, that didn't work out. She's tried to have a clothing store apparently that's more successful than some of her other ventures in the past. Just some of the things she's said and done lead me to believe she's searching for relevance. I think Jill Duggar is too, but I think Jill is doing hers privately and away from the spotlight and through therapy and everything else, which is where it needs to happen. When you come out of these C word, high demand religious organizations, you come out with a lot of trauma. And I'm always amazed at the people in who are Springdale and not just Springdale, they're Tontitown local that have reached out to me through the years. Some of them had some interesting things to say that I believed. Some of them you're listening to them and you're just shaking your head going, I can't use that. I'm going to get sued if I use that. Yeah, I could make a book of fake Duggar insiders. Some of the girls will get a show on another network. Maybe. Here's what I think is going to happen. Here's what happened the last time we had a Josh scandal. TLC waited a few months until it all died down, and they started a new Duggar show without the parents, but yes, with the parents, called Counting On. I would not doubt that when this boils out, TLC will give somebody in the Duggar family or some buddies a show and rebrand and say, oh, well, we're distancing ourselves from 19 Kids and counting on. With this show, it'll be nothing like it because, oh, Lord, how the money does roll in. That's one thing I can tell you about the Duggars that I know for sure. They have a huge fan base who will say and do anything to get to their to support their people. In fact, it kind of makes me laugh. I think the Duggars and a certain video blogger have very similar fan bases that have no grounding in anything remotely real, that believe every dumb rumor, that explode and go after people who point out that the object of their affection is not quite so perfect. They go after anybody who does. Erin, that's my belief too. In her friendship with that person makes her a lot less believable because there's certainly been enough evidence of the problematic nature, and most everybody else has backed away. Olivia from the Plath family has backed away from her. There have been others from reality TV who initially had contact with that particular YouTuber and backed away. Look at the recent bust up with the Preacher Boys, Eric. I mean, that's pretty bad too. Even though she claimed recently she was going to call him and make up, Eric hasn't indicated anything of that sort ever happened. And I'm not going to ask him because, frankly, I would have to care a whole lot more about what's going on to insert myself and say, hey, did you hear from so and so? Not going to do that. So here's what I do know about the Duggars that makes me not 100% dismiss the rumor of his death. They hide unpleasantness. They'll hide anything that does not advance the family storyline. They love to do that. They love to just go ahead and say, hey, that's not true. And then later it comes out, it's quite true. So if something horrible happened, and it's always a possibility because, let's face it, because of the drumbeat of the gossipers, the gossip sites, some of the discussion sites, anybody knows where he is. There's maps to the house. There's names and addresses. If somebody seriously got a case of the red behind and wanted to go there and go after him, there's not a whole lot anybody could do. That's why I got quite upset with the British tabloids when they started publishing the maps and the addresses. They need to not do that. Yes, Alyssa, there's rumors this morning and late last night that he's dead, that he's died. A family member, one of the in-laws, has debunked that as untrue. I'm not 100% sure it's not true. I'm not 100% sure it is true. The Duggars tend to hide everything unpleasant, so if it's true, I wouldn't doubt that they're denying it and hiding it and doing all of that. If it's untrue, the day does not go by where somebody does not make up a crazy Duggar rumor. So it wouldn't be too much of a stretch for somebody to make this up, particularly since we know that he is staying with these people. A map has been released of what their house is and their address. We know their names. This is all because of the British tabloids, and then some of the gossip outlets here have picked that up and republished that information. And there are a lot of people who are very upset with what he did. So it wouldn't be too far-fetched that someone might go after him. I would hope not. That would be a terrible thing. I and I know others are eager to see him face justice for what he's done. Someone knocking him off would not be him facing justice. His faith might condemn suicide, but that hasn't stopped people. I've known people in the quiverful world who've taken their lives because they can't live up to the pressures that the high demand religious organization puts on them. They can't live up to the images of perfections. They can't live up to any of that. So it becomes problematic. You try, you can't do it. You know you can't be your true self, so you kill yourself. I have seen that, and it's tragic. It's always tragic when someone feels that they cannot be the person they actually are inside. Alyssa, no information has been put out, whether it was a suicide or murder or what. What has happened is 3 or 4 of the less reputable gossip sites have said, Josh Duggar's dead. More information as we get it. That's basically it. And apparently this started on social media. Apparently someone on social media started saying this. And then the next thing you know, it got picked up all over the place. And various people are sitting on it and not commenting, some of the bigger outlets. And then you have these smaller ones that are eager to scoop everybody and everything. So they're publishing it like it's true with no information. Yep, there's nothing in the local paper. It's just all on these gossip channels. I even went and looked at the one gossip channel I hate the most this morning to see if they had covered it, and they've not said a word. Silent as the grave. So I'm thinking it's probably about an 85, 90% chance this is just rumor. It's not true at all. But with all the crap that has gone on around his arrest and around his bonding out and is around all the people he's staying with, I have to look at this and say, there might just be a little kernel of truth to that. So we're just going to have to sit back and we're going to have to sit back. Yes, Deborah, you were right. That's exactly right. Um, Out of sight, out of mind. That's a thing that they do. The appearance is everything in that world. You have to appear to be perfect. You don't actually have to be perfect. Um, it's a lot of pressure on you to follow all the trillions and zillions of rules because it has, I always say, the 10,000 rules of Melmac they have, because a lot of the rules that they have aren't even in the Bible. I mean, silly ones like women have to wear dresses all the time. It just says that women aren't to dress like men in one of the very Old Testaments. There's nothing much about that. There's nothing saying that you can't, that you have to wear a dress 24/7. It's probably a rumor, Alyssa. You're right. And they don't source anything. A lot of people are so eager to get the scoop that they just don't source anything. Cheryl, that could be suicide. Because look at what he's facing. Even if he's not convicted, his entire life is pretty much ruined. Even if he's not convicted, people will gossip. Tontitown and Springdale are very small southern towns. And living in a small southern town, and I've done that. I've lived in a small southern town. Everybody extrapolates things out. Example, I'm going to give you a good one. You know, I have the 10,000 allergies to everything under the sun, which is why I'm in my bedroom now with my AC running rather than be out in the humidity. And I'm avoiding the smell of the tiles I put up last night that I have to go back out there in a bit as soon as the medicines kick in to go out there and finish. Here's how small towns work, small southern towns with that kind of religious high demand organization. When I was still a member of my old Quiverful church in my tiny town in Virginia, I had a bad reaction to something that I'd eaten that day. And instead of the usual thing where my windpipe would start shutting, my lips swelled. I got really swollen lips. It looked like it looked very much like I had been filled up with lip filler more than anything else. So I got dressed that day. I had to run down to the post office in our tiny town to mail some things off. Got dressed, put on the makeup, put on my lipstick, got in the car, got to the post office, and ran into the biggest church of gossip I knew, who immediately started asking me when I got fillers in my lips. I said, "This isn't fillers. This is food allergies. Food allergies did this." I said, "Yes, right. So food allergies did that, right?" The next thing I know, it had gone all through church circles, and more than just our little pissant church, that I had had lip fillers and plastic surgery, which is about the farthest from the truth. I'm allergic to everything under the sun. You think I'd let them fill me full of Juvederm or any of those other things? Hell no. My luck, I would swell up even farther. So his future, no matter the outcome of the trial, is horrendous. Yes, that's exactly right, Busy Bee. And it may have hit him, the reality of his future, because he is probably run into people in his little Tontitown Springdale area who may have been friendly with him in the past and may have viciously turned on him. And if that's the case, if he's had enough of this kind of blaming, shaming thing going on, is it really that far of a jump to suicide? I mean, that's a terrible reality. And like I said, I do know people in our little group, some of them with mental health issues, that could not get treatment, but were told, oh, you just need to rely on Jesus. You need to not take any of the drugs or the talk therapy. You just need to believe harder and that will go. Let me tell you something. That does not go. No amount of faith helps with that beyond helping you deal with the panic attacks. It can be helpful if you pray during panic attacks because it puts you into a meditative state. But then again, you can do all kinds of different things that'll put you in that besides prayer. That can work. But saying that the person has to turn to Jesus, that's the only way they're going to get healing is one of the biggest lies that the American church loves to tell. And that one seems to cut across many different denominations. So that's the scary thing. Ashley, you said, do you hear that the Reber's daughter may be dating Anna's youngest brother? I hope Amy realizes who really is. I did hear that she was dating him. One of Anna's brothers is married to Jill Rodriguez's oldest daughter. Now, I don't know enough about the Kellers to be able to say, oh, that's terrible, they're dating. That's terrible, terrible, terrible. Because look at Jill Rodriguez's daughter that married Nathan Keller. When I look at pictures of her, she looks so much better than when she was living with her mother. She's gained some weight. She looks healthier. She looks happy. So maybe, I don't know how toxic the Keller's belief system is. If they're standard quiverful, then yeah, it's pretty toxic. But it really says a lot that somebody from a super controlled and toxic version of quiverful, a Rodriguez girl, would end up looking better and seeming happier under a more loose quiverful. Now, I hope all of these people run away from theology at some point because it is wicked. It causes all kinds of problems, but it looks like there's varying degrees of toxicity in these things. So I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure how they're going to go with this. And I keep hearing from the same unnamed Duggar insiders that the Duggar family has backed away from Anna because apparently Anna Duggar is really doubling down on the fact that she thinks Josh was set up. And the Duggar family itself apparently does not. So who knows what's really going on in the Tin Mansion up there? I don't know. Could be anything. We're just going to have to sit back and see how all of this plays out. He seems like a good egg. Seriously, he and Nathan look like they have a lot of fun together, but the connection really surprises me. Aaron, it doesn't surprise me. Here's what you have to remember about these quiverful families and these different quiverful, I'm going to call them jurisdictions because basically that's what they are. When you're in a quiverful family, you're going to a church where your pastor rules everything. He rules so many aspects of your life, and it's a small group. And you may not find somebody for your child to marry in your own small little group. You may have to look further afield. That's why the ATI camps and their jamborees and things they get together and do, those are really their potential source of marriageable others for your children because they'll run across somebody completely different. And I've seen that happen again and again throughout this. Look, you had Josh marrying Anna, who was a Keller down in Florida and part of her circle. You got Nuri Rodriguez from Ohio marrying Nathan, who's in the circle there in Florida. So these different churches in different circles, different jurisdictions, that it seems like you're more likely to marry out of those things than you are among the people you actually know. I feel bad for Anna. I feel like she has to hold on to the belief that Josh is innocent for her own sanity. I agree with that, Bliss. I think that's exactly what's going on, and that's why she's supporting him more than the quiverful. You support your husband no matter what. Debbie Pearl actually wrote a chapter in her book, Created to be a Helpmeet, where she talked about this very thing. She talked about if your husband was molesting young kids, and said that if that was going on, that when he's arrested, you don't fight it, but you don't break up with him. You show up at jail, you support him, you bring the kids there. You make sure when he gets out that you provide him with a safe place to live. It says hopefully he'll be back after your children are grown. If not, you have to figure out what to do with your children before you welcome your husband back. It was just the biggest bunch of blaming and shaming I've ever seen. I venture to say I saw this happen in my old church. That's why it took a long time before the mother would even admit that that's what the husband had done. A long, long time. And a whole lot of therapy with the pastor, which is not a good source of therapy. But our pastor somehow managed to convince her he had done it and she needed to divorce him. And he said that was one of the few reasons that you could divorce your husband. So he stood by her side while she divorced him, while she got all visitation between him and the children snipped. And he still can't see those kids. That's the only time I've ever seen that. And I think that even in Anna's church, they would probably counsel divorce. That's just something, that type of taste or compulsion, wherever you want to call it, doesn't go away with therapy. It doesn't go away. It doesn't even go away. They've discovered if they do a chemical castration of these guys still do this crime. Commit the crime and be criminal. And as somebody I know recently said, so it doesn't slow them down. They still do these awful bad things. So there's no recovery from this. If she thinks that there is, then she's just fooling herself. Like I said, most of the queerful churches that I've been a part of, this would be a reason to divorce the husband, and the entire church and the pastor would stand behind you. Unless you're going to Debbie Pearl's church, then that's never a reason, according to Debbie. Yes, Busy Bee. I'm sure that that's what Anna's doing. She's supporting him no matter what. Amy, you're gonna have to replay because we're talking about the new rumor that popped up that Josh is dead. A rumor that I can't confirm anywhere. That's on the just the sleaziest of the most unreliable of the gossip sites. That one of the in-laws came out and said was a lie. So who knows? Maybe we'll get an actual official Duggar denial by the end of the day, or maybe we'll see the rumor grow stronger and unnamed Duggar insiders come out and say, yes, this is true. They're hiding it. The reason they're hiding it is because of this. I think we may. You're right. You're right, Bliss. There's no recovery from this. I'm of the opinion I hate to curtail anyone's freedom, because in the US we're all about personal freedoms. But if you carry a condition where you cannot be cured, where you're going to go out and commit this again, then maybe you shouldn't even be out in polite society. Maybe not in jail, but maybe you should be in a community far away, because you're never going to be able to cope with this. You're never going to be able to recover from this. And I don't know how that needs to play out. They just are the way they are when they go into that thing. So, I hate to say put them in a mental hospital or something else, but something needs to be done, even if they just put them in a separate community. I don't know. I don't have all the answers. I don't claim to. I frequently screw up. And you guys know that because I will sometimes admit it here. And it's like, And speaking of which, before I end my stream today, I have to say, Julie Virgo has reached out a bunch of times to me to apologize. And I haven't had a chance to reply to all of them. Some of them I have. I hold nothing against her. She said something kind of cruel about me. I was kind of flabbergasted and hurt for a few days. And then I got over it. I got over it. Then she apologized, and I was really over it. I believe in forgiveness. I believe in giving people second chances, unless they've done something like Josh has done. I don't think there's any second chances for certain kinds of offenses. But what Julie said about me, oh my goodness, there is definitely forgiveness and grace for that, because it wasn't even. I mean, she said the truth. She said the truth. She said it in a cruel way, but it is true. I'm old. I'm 61. My boobs sag. I've had cancer surgery. I've had radiation. I don't have the best set of jugs on the planet anymore. If I don't wear a bra, they're going to sag. And I'm actually okay with that. Bliss, that's actually an idea. Just drop them off on an island. I wish we could. I wish we could drop them all off. Oh, Busy Bee. I'm going to have to look for that documentary. Um, I'm going to have to, because that sounds kind of horrific and terrible in so many levels. I just don't. I don't know how that would work. Like I said, it just doesn't make any sense. I don't have answers for a lot of things. I was telling my husband today, we haven't gotten our refund from the IRS. It's rather large this year, and I just read an article. They're saying they may be as much as 6 months behind right now. They've got millions of unprocessed returns, and I guess we're caught in that bunch. Yeah, I'll have to take a look, most definitely, for the documentary on that, because there's no easy answer to what to do with these guys, and that's another reason why I'm not dismissing this out of hand. I think there's a possibility that as the reality of his situation dawns on him, we may see a suicide, and that would really be tragic. I'm always rooting for people to hit bottom and turn around. It's always possible. I don't care what it is. You can turn around. Now, what he's got is a whole lot harder to do that from, and they mostly don't change. I believe it might be possible for him to make some kind of turnaround and maybe not be around those children for the rest of his life. Maybe live separately, but there's nothing to say he couldn't come out of this and do some good in this world. And then he couldn't have some sorrow over it and come to a reckoning to realize what it was he's done. I agreed to be interviewed. I did not know that. Snake Island. That would be Florida or something like that. Um, you want to know, Bliss, because what makes a person that way? I think here's my 50 cents version of it. I think that particularly with Josh, if you're in a high demand religious organization that says that any type of sexuality outside of marriage is wrong, even things that are common like self-pleasuring, feelings, sexual feelings and interest in sexuality as you develop, which is pretty normal. We all go through that. It's perfectly normal to have those feelings, thoughts, and everything else. But if you're in a group that says no, that even thinking those thoughts is sinful, and you're having those feelings as a teenage boy, but you don't have an outlet. You don't have an outlet. You can't self pleasure. You can't look at girly mags. You can't do any of that stuff that is pretty normal for young men. I think it creates a warped sexuality in that person. And the stricter everything is, and the more modesty focused it is, then the more the person gets warped, because we've looked at his progression all the way from what happened with his sisters when he was in his early teens, through him working for Jim Holt and it being rumored that he got fired for looking at porn on the campaign computers, to just all kinds of things like going to strip clubs in the DC area and the part of Arkansas he's from that's been rumored about for years. From there, going and having sex with a adult film star. joining Ashley Madison so he could have affairs with married women, and apparently did have a couple at least. And now we're here. It's like this thing has just grown. It's like a snowball going downhill. It may be a tiny little snowball when it starts, but it might be boulder size by the time it's done. I just think this has been a progression with him. And my understanding about porn is if you're a regular user of it, it can take freakier and freakier things as time goes on. And that may be what we're seeing here. Somebody that a mere girly mag does nothing to, that has to have the most sickest and twisted stuff to satisfy his urges. I can't imagine growing up like that either, Bliss Chris. I think that his parents are responsible for this. I think they're ultimately responsible for everything that's happened. Right. And here's the thing, it's a pressure cooker. You're right, Amanda. It is very much the pressure cooker. If you can't talk to your parents about the things they're experiencing, and I went through this with my kids. One of the three talked about it with me. The other two ran away screaming, going, "Mom, you're gross, you're gross." But I made that attempt because I grew up in one of those very Catholic households where none of this was discussed. When we had the period talk, I don't know if you've had that in school, but the period talk where they brought all the girls into the gymnasium, they showed us a film on menstruation, and then the nuns got up and talked. And one of the things they said is there was only one type of birth control that was reliable. It was the kind as good Catholic girls we should be using. That was to put an aspirin between your knees and squeeze. In other words, no sexual activity whatsoever. And they went down the line and said, this, these are all sinful. You can't do them. You can't even think about it. Keep your mind pure. Renew your mind daily with Jesus and Mary. And every time you feel the urge to do X, Y, and Z, start saying the rosary. Just very unhelpful conversation to be having with like 12, 13, 14-year-old girls that are struggling with a budding sexuality. I'm a big fan of being completely open with your kids, with everyone, if possible. Bliss, when it happens, when you get to that point, it will happen. You'll be able to have that little conversation. It may cause the kid to run away screaming. You saw him in Club 55. I am not surprised because, I lived in the greater DC area and it was something that people talked about. He was seen there. He was seen at all the strip clubs, is my understanding. And I don't doubt that at all. These guys don't stop. They chase their high. Their high has to get weirder and weirder all the time until we get to this point. I don't know if he's a sex addict or not, but that wouldn't surprise me at all. It's kind of sad because you're told in Quiverful that you are your husband's only sexual outlet, so you cannot ever refuse him. If he comes to you for sex, it's 5 minutes in lube. That's a big Lori Alexander saying. She loves to say it's 5 minutes in lube, and you shouldn't be selfish enough to expect any pleasure out of any sexuality. Aaron, was that in a Catholic school or was that in a public school? Because the public schools in Virginia did a really horrible job of it. Yes, they did a really horrible job of teaching that to my kids, even. Oh, public school. Yeah. Oh, bless. You're from Baltimore, one of my favorite cities. I've spent so much time in. One of my favorite things um, ever. Alyssa, that's good. I started the talk early because I didn't want anybody to have the traumatic experience I had that when I started my period at 11, I thought I was dying and ran screaming to my mother. Yes, Amanda, that's a good idea. You got to go someplace where they cannot get away from you while you're having the conversation. The car is a good one because they're not going to jump out and run screaming away. I made the mistake of having mine in the house where there was the opportunity to run away. So there's that. I tried. I tried. I did the best I could. If I'm a failure at a mother, then I'm a failure. I tried to do I tried to do what I thought was right, like all of us try to do. Yes, Busy Bee, that's exactly right. He had to look for darker activity because he was desensitized. If you're exposed to that stuff on a regular basis, apparently it will desensitize you to the point where nothing else works. Oh, wow. Diane, that's just something I never thought about. I thought later about making pageant costumes because that's one thing I can do that I'm really good at. I'm a very good seamstress. I'm a good at tailoring, sewing from scratch, designing stuff, all of that. And I used to make Mardi Gras costumes in Louisiana, but I never thought about costumes for adult entertainers. That would have been a sideline. I did think about the whole awful pageant kids thing, but decided no, I didn't want to support that. Here in Utah, they do in the fifth grade too. Yeah, it needs to start that early, Alyssa. It really does because more and more kids are getting this information. They're bombarded with it. They're bombarded with it on social media. They're bombarded with it in all sorts of different ways. Born and raised, not as great as it used to be. Yeah, you're right. It's corrupt. I used to love to go to Baltimore because it reminded me of New Orleans so much. The very old parts of the city, the harbor, all of that. We used to, I hate to confess this, we used to go do pub crawls where we would go from place to place to place, starting in Little Italy, going to Fells Point, going all over the place. It was just so much fun. Aaron, it does seem too young, but with the way our society floods kids with information, it's better to catch them early. Diane, that's what happened when I finally got my period. My mother gave me a book and ran away. So I figured out I went dying from a book. Diane, that's a good way for it to happen too. I wasn't raised on a farm, but apparently a lot of people are raised on the farm, pick this information up early from watching the animals. I would not be surprised at all. Oh my goodness, that is terrible, Aaron. 13 years old is way too young to be having a baby. Fells Point pub crawl, yes. Oh, yeah, that's a good way to do it, Bliss. You were exactly right. I used to sometimes stay at the Admiral Feld Inn so that I had a place to crawl back to rather than hopping in my car and going back to Northern Virginia. A little boutique in Bethesda. Oh, I'm just reading. I told you before I was given a book when I was Cardinal Newman Sexual Education. Oh, no, 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 Busy Bee. You've told me that before, but I just cannot even imagine that. I just cannot imagine that. Bliss it is. It's breathtaking, and it is like a third world country in certain areas. For about 4 months, I used to go to Johns Hopkins Harborview 3 times a week, or was it Bayview? Bayview. I'm sorry, Bayview, where the National Allergy and Asthma Foundation is, where they have the research facility. I went for occupational therapy, and it Baltimore is a strange city. It can be beautiful, and then 2 blocks over, you're in the middle of just like a war zone almost. I've had that experience there. It's really scary. Oh, did you? Farm girl from Iowa in Lafayette? That's pretty crazy. Oh, were you? It's a good facility. I really loved my doctors there. They helped me quite a bit. The occupational therapy turned out to be the best thing to happen to me. It helped me breathe through my asthma attacks because I was having a problem with my vocal cords shutting every time I had asthma, and I would black out and I would come to, and it was just a mess. So now I know how to breathe to not have that happen. It's a crazy thing. Oh, that is heartbreaking, Aaron. That is heartbreaking. Amanda, I would be interested in that too. And when I was about, I guess, 21 or so, I was staying with my father and my stepmother. I was staying with my stepbrother, actually. I think I was watching him while they went out of town. They went out to do something, who knows, for the weekend or for a week or something. And I had gone into the closet to get something. I think my father said he had something in there. I just wanted to know where the shotgun was. I think it was. This has been years ago, so that's one of the memories are distant. And I saw this book on the shelf in the closet and pulled it off. It was a sex manual. It was possibly the worst one I have ever seen. It was, why did I say that? Because it had those unisex little drawing dolls, you know, the type I'm talking about. If you take art lessons and you learn how to draw, they have these little wooden dolls that you can pose in all kinds of positions. But it didn't have the little wooden dolls in sexual positions together. They had them separately. So you had to look at them and say, okay, this position, the man gets like this, dog is like this, and this dog gets like that. So there were separate pictures. So you had to use your dirty imagination and put them together. I'd laughed so hard over that stupid book. You just moved back from Iowa to DC. Man, that must be culture shock, Diane. Must be culture shock. It really must be. It's just finding my dad's porn, VHS, and magazines hidden in her basement's drop ceiling. That's terrible. That's terrible, but funny at the same time. It's one of those things you look back later, the time you're just jaw dropped and shocked. But later you look back and say, that's actually kind of funny. That is actually all kinds of funny. Um, Maryland, right by DC. Cousin's wedding by Baltimore. And love the area. Baltimore is beautiful. So beautiful. We talked about moving there at one point. Orlando. Oh my goodness. That is going to be a huge culture shock for you too, Aaron. Um, it just is. Florida's its own separate area. There's a reason there's Florida man. Maryland is super expensive. My daughter just bought a house there. She just bought a house there, and she couldn't afford a house in Northern Virginia. It was expensive where she was. Diane, I think so. My father certainly did. I think so. And I guess I'm gonna have to go. I've talked to you guys all this time. This is not a great asthma day for me. I have got those stupid tiles that have to go on the have to go in the kitchen. I'm in the middle, I'm at the very beginning of remodeling my kitchen, and I'm excited. I'm super excited. We're gonna get somebody in to come paint the thing the color I want. Actually, in this house, I've gone with the most neutral colors you could imagine, which I did not in my house I was in for 30 years, because I know at some point we're going to have to turn around and sell this to some gringo. And I had better have neutral colors for everywhere. So you all have a great day, and you have a great day. And oh, I have three children, Alyssa. Three. I have one from my first husband. I have a very short first marriage to a musician. One day I'll tell stories about that because I got the stories from my first marriage. I got crazy stories from that. And then 10 years after that divorce, I married Jim, the love of my life. And we have two children together, and we've been married. We just last week hit our 36th wedding anniversary. So, you guys have a great day.